Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is time for another recap video. It is the second day of the Legends stage being completed at the Blast Paris Major. And as promised, we're going to be doing some daily content. So I'm joined again by the lovely Frog and Dualism. And we're going to be delving into the ups and the downs of today's proceedings. We started with Frog yesterday, so we'll start with Dualism today. Dualism, can you give us a positive, please, from today's proceedings?
My positive will, in fact, be a team that we spoke about yesterday in G2, because they beat Furia. They looked a lot better. They did it cleanly. It was a 2-0. And my main criticism yesterday was that it was very much the Nico show. But today, Hunter and Monesy actually showed up, and I think that that was probably the big difference maker for them over Furia, who, to be fair, didn't look great.
Yeah, Furia have been, let's be honest, dreadful. I think we'll probably get back onto them a little bit later on. But so you feel like the general vibe of G2 was a significant step up, and obviously with them against Fnatic next, I assume you fancy them to probably beat Fnatic as well.
I do, but I also have a point about Fnatic for later as well. But
Okay.
yeah, if G2 show up as a team rather than I think the better description is that showing up as a team rather than a group of a few good individuals, um, I would probably heavily favor them. Yeah.
All right, Frog, what's your positive?
My positive isn't as positive as I would have hoped it to be, considering how it started off, but it's heroic. I think overall, still pretty happy with how they played today. I thought, it should be a comfortable 2-0 for them against Liquid today. And considering how things started off on Inferno, I was really hopeful. I mean, I think it was like an 11-4 half on their CT side. It started off with Yabi getting a knife kill in the pistol round. I think Stown got like a 4K spray down on site, and this was in the follow up. Cadian hit some crazy shots with the op. Like, it felt really, really good for Heroic. And I was like, okay, cool. This is major winning form right here. And then they got to the T side, and overall, I mean, listen, it's still a positive. A win's a win. They're through. They're 3-0. But I don't know. Like, their T side was really lackluster. There's a huge lack of banana presence on their T side, which meant that Liquid were just capable of constantly having four guys on A. It felt like the fundamentals of CS were just kind of not there. But once they, started having a bit more B presence, going back B, drawing out utility, drawing out rotations, and kind of playing how we know Heroic can play, then it clicked again, and they were able to close out the map. Overall in the series, I think Liquid actually looked really good. It's not just that Heroic were bad or anything. So a promising start for Heroic, and I mean, if they can fix a few of these like kind of basic mistakes that we all know they're capable of fixing, I think they're going to be in really good form and could easily take this major. So yeah, good stuff from Heroic today.
Yeah, I was definitely impressed with Heroic as well. And as you mentioned, I think it's very key, and I'm glad that you did that. Liquid, far gone from the Challenger stage performance that nearly saw them bow out. They even lost the first map, I think, against Fluxo. It's looking like they could even get 0-3'd. So a far cry from that, and they really have bounced back. So yeah, the fact that Heroic, 3 legit wins, they beat FaZe, Apex, now Liquid as well as they cruise into the next stage is very impressive indeed. For my particular positive, I've got to say, look, I was wrong. I went for Into the Breach. I had these guys down as 0-3, and I have been proven completely wrong on these, and I'm super, super happy to be proven wrong. Legit wins against FaZe and Ents. That is no joke. And next up, they're going against Liquid, which we have just discussed, have been a team that's definitely on the upward trend, a bit of a resurrection. So I was very impressed with Into the Breach. I got to say, Crucial in particular was a monster today, posted up some huge performances, and very, very impressed. The question I will pose to both of you, starting with Dualism, do you think they have a chance against Liquid?
I think if you can take down FaZe and Ents, even if these are not prime best form that they can give FaZe and Ents, I think that they have more than a chance against Liquid. And I think that a lot of pick'ems and a lot of belief in a lot of the teams really has come from we see the same teams at most events. And so when you see a name like FaZe or G2 or an Ents, you're expecting good things because chances are you've seen them play a lot, and if you see them over a year, they'll have their ups and downs, but people kind of know the overall level of a top team. While Into the Breach has been a lot more under the radar, and they've also not been at any, as far as I know, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong there, but I don't think they've been at any tier 1 events at all, especially with this lineup.
Nope, not at all.
Yep. Frog, what's your thoughts?
I'd be inclined to agree. I think Into the Breach definitely have been like a sleeper pick. Like I'm not surprised so many people put them as O3 because just as Dualism highlighted, people aren't familiar with them, and obviously you're going to favor big names like Navi, FaZe, G2, whatever to make it through as favorites. But Into the Breach, I mean, these guys are pretty good. Anyone who's followed the UK scene will be familiar with a lot of these guys. Cypher's shown up really well yesterday. Crucial, as you mentioned today, really insane. And when you think about Crucial, his peak prior to this was probably on Endpoint, and he wasn't really known as a big opper, right? Like or a big impact, high fragging opper. And so it's pretty cool to see that in this squad he's capable of doing that. Yeah, I definitely see a world where Into the Breach could do it. I guess the caveat is just that FaZe and so far these have been like if I'm not mistaken, all best of ones, right? So we'll see against Liquid, but at the same time, even if Liquid are looking better now, I mean, today was the Yekindar and Naf show, right? Like, it was, there were key moments from every player. Nitro hitting some 6 shots, OC as well being really impactful on the op, but at the same time, like, it's not like this is also peak Liquid yet, so there's still a chance for Into the Breach to actually take this, and at least make it look very competitive.
Yeah, and I think they probably, for a lot of the reasons that both of you have mentioned, lack of tier 1 events, like obviously the RMR, I think, is where a lot of people first saw them when they took down, I think, Virtus Pro at 16-13, got some legit results there, but I think now they're starting to win a lot of people over, and if they can manage to make the champion stage, that would just be such an unbelievable, exceeding expectations type of moment here. But yeah, they do run into the veterans of Liquid, and I think it's a bit of a coin flip. Liquid probably the favorites, but you never quite know. So we'll move on to the negatives now, as Dualism went for the first positive. I will throw this one to you, Frog. What's your negative for today?
Well, okay, I'm not just saying this because I'm bitter they didn't actually go 3-0, but my negative today would be Monty. I really praised them yesterday. They were my positive. And they just failed to deliver today against Vitality. And again, I touched on that yesterday. Vitality, really good team. All the individuals were showing up in terms of like it wasn't just Saiwu carrying and everybody else is on a sub 1 rating, right? It's a good looking Vitality. But it was a bad looking Monty, if I'm honest. The opening match was on Anubis, and to anyone who has been, studying Anubis, Monty were the kings of tier 2 when it came to that, right? Like, I think they probably have more officials than most other tier 1 teams on Anubis combined. And even though Vitality have been like the tier 1 team to really adopt and kind of thrive in Anubis, I was hoping to see a bit more competitiveness from Monty today. I don't know if it's just a matter of there being so much material for Vitality's coaching staff to look at and anti-strat, but it was just a little bit disappointing because it wasn't even the Boros show today, right? I feel like he showed up, but he wasn't as good as he has been so far this major, and no one else was really able to kind of step up as I was hoping as they did yesterday in terms of like SDY, War 2K, Krasnell, right? All these guys getting really big crucial rounds. I just didn't really happen today. No one was there. And so it kind of ended up being Boros doing okay, like a decent performance, but by his standards, not that great, and everybody else just not really showing up. So I'm a little wary just because tomorrow they face Navi. Navi are a bit up and down as well, as we all know, but this Ukrainian derby, so to speak, could be quite interesting. And I'm not quite sure. I mean, if Monty can't get this form together and actually play the way they've been playing, very lighthearted, it might not go well for them. They could end up 2-2, and that's not the place you want to be, with all that pressure on your back.
Oh yeah, a lot of the teams in that 2-2 bracket as well are going to be heavy hitters. I don't think it's going to get any easier after Na'Vi when you consider you still have like FaZe down there and Ents and G2. It's going to be pretty grim times if you do go down into that bracket. Just before we get onto your negative Dualism, I know that you're also someone that is a big fan of Monty, and you've been keeping an eye on this team. I know in the Challenger stage in particular, you had a lot of faith in these guys. Do you want to add anything to what Frog just discussed there about their performance? Are you maybe a little bit more forgiving, or do you kind of echo his sentiments?
I'd say I echo it pretty much entirely. And I think, again, it's a pretty similar situation to G2 yesterday, where if you have a team where you have one standout player or one player that is doing the majority of the heavy lifting, but the team can't match that level and is lagging behind, I think it is inevitable that, especially now in a legend stage where every team is dangerous, as has been seen when Into the Breach are kind of upsetting a lot of these teams, you can't really afford to have the team not matching or at least equaling the output of their top performer.
Hmm. Okay, it's good to know that you're both on the same page. I definitely come down. Maybe a little bit more forgiving because I didn't maybe have as high expectations of Monty coming into this. But yes, I think against Na'Vi it's going to be a very, very difficult test, and it's not a guarantee win for Na'Vi either because they've had their shaky moments. But Dualism, as we just alluded to there, what is your negative of today?
My negative is a little complicated because I want to say Fnatic, but there's more to it than the team not really performing. And I'm about to number dump a huge amount of stuff here. But if we ignore Crims's 46 days where he was on Godsent, he has been on Fnatic for a total of 3,100 days or something around that. So he's been there for a very long time. While G2 has only existed as an organization for about 3,000 days. So his time on Fnatic is longer than G2 has existed as an org within Counter-Strike. And so them going up against each other is very interesting, and I don't have a huge amount of faith in Fnatic. But I think it would be a shame to see an organization like Fnatic fall to a team just before they can make playoffs of the final major, really.
So you've kind of gone the route of legacy, perhaps more so. The fact that Fnatic have been around for so long, it is a team in Counter-Strike that is synonymous with CS. Obviously, it's had its moments in the sun in terms of potential eras, and yeah, Crims is one of those players that he has been around forever. He's one of the few sort of proper veteran Swedish players that is still around and still capable of being just a king on his day, but yeah, that's a very interesting point. I had no idea he'd been in Fnatic for that long without that stint on Godsent, like nearly 10 years. That's actually insane.
I've got the exact number, so 3,194 days in total on Fnatic.
Jeez. that's actually wild. Oh, that's caught me off guard, to be honest. That's a great stat. In terms of my negative, I'm going to have to go with Furia. To be honest, I know it's the low-hanging fruit. It's a bit of an obvious one, but the fact of the matter is, but before today, they hadn't won a single T round in either of the two opening matchups against Monty or Nuke. Or Nip or Nuke. And they have just been a complete shambles. They finished the stage, assuming that a team doesn't get completely banged out in the next couple of days, probably with the worst round difference out of any team here, including Nine, who also went 0-3. I know they're trying to change up their style, and they're trying to become a little bit more, I suppose, quote-unquote, normal, but I just don't see it suiting them, and especially not with a fast turnaround. They looked absolutely dreadful at this major, and I'm looking at the pick'ems here on my screen, and I see that obviously Frog is just a mega mind, massive chat. It's almost like you're a coach of a team, Frog, because you didn't put Fury in your pick'ems. I don't think you really believed in these guys.
I thought about putting them as 3-0, quite a few people did, and then I was like, you know what? No. And listen, I don't mean to flex too hard here, but I've been following Furia for a long time, right? I think since early 2018 or something like that, when they were no ones, right? Like literally nobody's read names on Liquipedia, didn't have profiles, kind of like just playing the small domestic cups, the same way you see maybe Fluxo now, right? Um, and I saw Yuri, and I was like, holy shit, this guy's insane. And I saw Caserato, and I was like, holy shit, this guy's even more insane. But it felt like that duo was really onto something. And then over the last few months, it's turned into less of like, okay, Caserato's really, really good, and Yuri's just right there behind him. And it's more of just like Caserato's really, really good. And yeah, that's it. That's about it. That's all there is to Furia right now. And it's kind of disappointing because we've seen this team reinvent themselves quite a few times over the years, but I guess we're just reaching another point where it's there's nothing to it anymore. There's no more Furia, and I don't know what they can really do. I mean, Drop's been a bit of a disappointment for quite a long time, and I know that's a little harsh to say, but I mean he just never really stepped up to the plate. Safe's a good opper, but I mean he's getting on. There's a lot of other candidates in the region, and Art ultimately is probably the one that's most likely to get swapped out at this point because, well, can you reinvent yourself another time and lead your team to the top going into potentially a new game, right? I don't know. It's a really tough spot to be in for Furia right now, and it's just really disappointing to see.
So just to pick your brain a little bit, as you yourself are a coach, obviously, and have a much better understanding of what goes on behind the scenes with a team dynamic than I do, or a lot of people listening to this right now do. Trying to reinvent themselves like a month or so before the major. I know it's not as black and white. Is that a good idea? But why do you think that this has happened? Like, surely you would need more time to develop and try and like hit the ground running before a huge tournament like this.
Well, listen, you tell me. Apparently, Liquid thought it was a good idea, and they nearly bombed out, and now they're looking good again. So it's a weird one. I get wanting to do a lot of work to kind of be unpredictable going into a big event, and I understand, there's no bigger than the major. Uh, in a sense, with Bravado, the team I'm coaching currently, we're going into Katowice soon, and so we're having to make quite a few changes. But I think the mistake that teams can make is sacrificing too much of your identity and trying to play a style that just does not suit your strengths. If you're in the server and you're having to kind of second doubt your instincts, that's just not where you want to be. It's not to say you can't change or you shouldn't deviate from bad habits, but to completely reinvent yourself, have players play in completely new positions, it's just really difficult in a time crunch for that to actually work out and pan out the way you'd hope it does.
Yeah, I really like the point about kind of not playing to your own strengths and your own, almost playing into your own weaknesses. And it definitely felt that way as I've been watching them over the duration of this major, because at one point I even thought of putting them as my gamble sort of 3-0 pick, because with Fury you never quite know what to expect. I'm so glad I didn't. But somebody else that joined me in the Fury of belief, albeit I'm not sure if you put them in as a gamble pick, Dualism, or if you actually believed that they had a good chance of making it through. But what's been your take on watching these guys? Because I think it's safe to say they've been massively underwhelming.
Yeah, just very, very disappointing. And I think it's a sad way to kind of see Brazilian Counter Strike end its time in CS:GO with, really. Especially when Furia on home soil in Rio looked very good and did very well, and if I'm not mistaken, made it to the semi-finals in Rio. I could be wrong. But yeah, it's just it is quite. They really are going out with a bit of a whimper.
Yeah, indeed. I think that's a good way to finalize Furia. And as you mentioned it completely there, like Brazilian CS will play no further part. It will not be playing the champion stage, and that is a real shame because it's been an integral part of Counter-Strike for so very long. So that's going to wrap it up for day two. Do either of you guys have anything else you want to add just before we head off? Maybe another point that you'd like to raise before we call it a day?
No, just that, NAF is carrying Liquid as Canadians do, and yeah, Canadian CS on top. That's about it.
Jules, have you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, so I know how you love being made to feel very old. So here's another little fun bit of information. Monesy was born in May of 2005, and a month afterwards was when Fnatic signed their first team in 1.6.
2005. Bruh. Yes, I feel very old. Thank you very much. We're going to call it there. So we'll see you guys again tomorrow for day three.